Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us in class today. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Broadcasting, for now, from Missouri, the corrupt state of Missouri. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Rich Sheben's with us. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Thank you, Vincent. I know I always say, how are you? And then you always say...
I knew you weren't going to do it.
Since you mentioned
I knew you weren't...
I'm just going to take the microphone for a couple seconds here and comment on, because I'm sure it raised a couple of question marks to the listeners when you said we are broadcasting every day for now. And we've discussed this. We've discussed this especially privately. And I don't think it's a bad thing to discuss, Vince, but I think we're in a crossroad in America where if Trump gets elected and does the things he is supposed to do and, declassify everything for the people from the Epstein names for pedophilia to Uranium One, the Clinton Foundation, to the IG report and everything to do with the FISA warrant fiasco documents, all the documents related to Barack Obama, the billions of dollars of cash given to Iran, geoengineering and all the weather modification tools and patents, everything about 911, and declassify also everything related to alternative energies that's not available for the people. And we've gotten to the point where the rule of law has gone to the highest bidder. And it's really a shame because the little people feel they have no representation. There's no justice for the little people, especially depending on what group you're in. You look at people who try and do good things for humanity, like Julian Assange, Tommy Robinson, Schaefer Cox, all in jail. You look at all the witnesses being paid off or intimidated or even whacked, like Jeffrey Epstein. There's nobody in this country dumb enough to believe that he committed suicide.
Well, I don't know about that. Rich Sheeben. I don't know about that. I met a few on Friday.
My point is we need more whistleblowers, and where I'm going with this, Vince, is that I feel that, and you agree with this, that if we get to the election, whatever happens, if Donald Trump wins and does these things for the people, for the rule of law, for the Bill of Rights and Constitution, maybe we could head to a better place. If not, we are going to go to a very bad place for the people. It's probably going to be central bank control, no cash. Basically, the central banks will own everything with the corporate oligarchies. It'll be a centralized crypto. Anything centralized and not decentralized will be a disaster for the people. So I think that, and pardon me for being a little wordy here, but I think that the 2020 election, I don't think we're going to be able to do much good for the people regarding waking people up. I think the people who have woken up, who have decided to read and research, have done so. And I think that's the crossroads that we are at right now. I think if the little people doesn't control the narrative and take the time to read and research and think for themselves, then America is absolutely done for. Vince?
Yeah. I wanted to share something with you. There's no question that the United States is getting deeper and deeper into the morass. The standards are becoming lowered, like by the second or maybe by the nanosecond. Every time I look around, I see more decay. You mentioned nobody in America. Well, I got to tell you about Epstein being murdered. I won't talk about this until Friday, but I got a chance to meet some of the dumbest people on the planet on Friday. And so I think they probably believe that Epstein committed suicide, but they don't read, they don't pay attention. They're just ignorant of the facts. And we'll talk about that on Friday. By the way, I'll talk about, I'm going to do a special report on the election at Laclede Electric Cooperative. Some of you may be wondering how I fared. I will do a special report on that on Friday, and I'll let you know, blow by blow, what happened. And I can guarantee you will be surprised at some of the things I'm going to say. You'll be absolutely surprised. Now, Rich, I don't think you would be surprised, because whenever I say to Rich Scheben off there, Rich, you won't believe this. He goes, yeah, actually, I do believe it. So, and Rich, you'll be surprised. No, I'm not surprised. So, other than Rich Scheben and a few of our members of our class, actually probably maybe most of the members of our class will fully understand what I'm saying. So that's Friday. Also Friday, we're introducing a new instructor, Margaret. She's going to be calling in from Spain, and she's going to teach us how to preserve foods for the long term. And I think that'll be a great broadcast. So she's making her debut here at USA Prepares as an instructor on Friday, hour number 1. Hour number 2 is the Laclede Electric Cooperative Annual Board of Directors meeting / carnival / circus / election. Which since you mentioned it. Well, this really applies to a lot of people. It applies to people who have gasoline-powered devices like generators, small gasoline generators, 11 horsepower or smaller typically, lawn mowers, weed eaters, high-pressure washers, rototillers. New phenomenon. I was kind of stunned by this. I saw it firsthand. So one of those pieces of equipment ended up here, not ours. It ended up here, and it just wouldn't run properly. It would start maybe and then stall. Start. Well, spiders. Spiders were in the fuel tank. And the spider webs and the spider dead bodies accumulated around the pickup point in the fuel tank for the gasoline to go into the carburetor. No fuel filter on this particular device. Now, the question is, how can that happen? Spiders are not going to crawl through that little vent hole in the gas cap. So there's only 2 ways I can think of this happening. And that's what I want to share with you, so you don't do this. One way is leave the gas cap off, for the summer or for the winter. That's hardly ever done, right? So I don't think that's the answer in this particular case. But I think what is the answer is so many of these fuel tanks have gas caps, little yellow caps on the end of the spout. And I think they get lost. None of ours is lost, but I think other people lose them or misplace them or don't put them back on. And then the spiders are looking for a nice, safe place to live in a dark hole, and they climb down there. And then when you pour the gasoline into the tank, the spiders come out, go into the tank. And then if you do that enough times, you have a whole bunch of spider parts and spider webs in your gas tank of your equipment. It clogs it up, and then ultimately those little pieces get in the carburetor. Then you have to take the carburetor apart. So that's what I think is happening. And then these new deluxe government-approved safety gas cans without the gas caps. They have these little tubes that allow air to go in the same tube as the gasoline is dispensed from. Those that don't have gas caps on the end of the spout, that's a perfect way of getting spiders and debris and dirt into your fuel in your gasoline-powered equipment. Perfect way to do it. So I just wanted to share that with you. Make sure that when you pour fuel into your lawn equipment, that you can see what you're doing, first of all. Do it outside where there's some light, and make sure that you cover up with the cap that came with your gas tank, the spout. Okay? Because dirt will clog up the carburetor. Absolutely. And then what do? Do you know how to put a carburetor on? If you do, great, because you'll be taking it off, cleaning it, and putting it back on. If not, you're going to be paying somebody to do it. And you're looking at $100 minimum to do that. So that's my thought on today's automotive gasoline reciprocating piston type engine class. Rich, any comments about that? Can you imagine that happening?
I can imagine a lot of things happening, Vince. I take care of my equipment, my generator, my lawnmower. I empty out if there's any gas left in my lawnmower going into late fall when I don't have to mow around my raised beds in the garden because we have goats, so I don't have to mow any so-called lawns. It's all grass. It's feed for the animals. But I make sure I always empty out, if there's gas, I empty that out. I empty out the oil, and I put new oil in every spring when I'm ready to reuse it. My generator, and I use the top octane gas out there with no ethanol, with no, I use the best stuff for my equipment, my wood splitter, my generator, my lawnmower, my UTV, my chainsaws. I use the best quality gas for my tools, and I've never had any problems with any of my engines at all on all the above that I've talked about. I've had issues where other peripheral equipment might have gotten deteriorated from use, but I've never had an issue, knock on wood, with my engine because I just do a few common sense little things.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, Rich Scheben, because you said that you don't use gasoline with ethanol. You use the top of the line stuff. And gasoline used to be like that. All gasoline used to be like that. And what has happened is the government has gotten together with farmers, and they've said, you know what, we don't need this corn for fuel. I'm sorry, for food. We'll use it for fuel, which is one of the dumbest things you could possibly do, because it takes more than a gallon of energy to make a gallon of ethanol. So it's a net loss. But the government decided that's what we needed to do. And what happens is water is soluble in alcohol, and alcohol is soluble in gasoline. So what happens is the water in the gas tank, and there's water in the gas tank because let's say you have a half a tank of gas, whether it's your car or your lawnmower or your weed whacker, whatever it is. Let's say you have just a half a tank. The rest of that tank is filled with air, and in that air is moisture. There's always moisture in the air. Even in a desert, there's moisture in the air. There's some amount. So what happens is when that gas tank skin gets cool, the air with the moisture in it, the moisture condenses on the inside of the gas tank, drops to the bottom of the tank, gets absorbed by the alcohol, which is absorbed by the gasoline, and then it settles in your carburetor and corrodes your carburetor. That's why you don't have problems, because you don't use that kind of gasoline. Good move on your part. Bert Scheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. Class, I've got a new policy. I hate doing this kind of stuff, but I've decided that I'm going to have this new policy. It's effective immediately. As you know, I will not allow profanity on USA Prepares. I don't allow profanity in my house. People who come to my house don't swear. We lead by example. However, there are people who send me emails, and they have all kinds of profanity in them. And there's this talk show host sent me an email. One of the first few words was the F word, and it annoyed me. It annoyed me because in my house, I don't have an email account that is just like secret. I may ask Mrs. Finelli, can you just check my emails, please, and let me know if there's anything I need to do because I'm all covered with grease, or I'm under the tractor, or there may be something that's important that I need to know about, but I can't do it right now. Can you do that for me? Or our children may do that. Or when somebody calls, I may put them on a speakerphone. I have in the studio a corded telephone with a button that says speakerphone. So I may be in the studio. So when people call and they start using profanity, it travels throughout the whole house. I don't like it. So here is a heads up. If someone has my phone number and uses profanity, the next thing they'll hear is silence. I'm not taking it. Now, they have a right to free speech, but I don't have to listen to it. And I won't. And I've got to tell you, when people use profanity, it lessens their credibility of whatever it is they're saying. If they're trying to make an argument or a case, it is devalued by, 80, 90%. I would never go to a place that cuts hair where the person with the scissors says, F this, F that, Would you? Or how about the waitress? You want one of our blank hamburgers? Or how would you like a blank iced tea with that? Or would you rather have blank coffee? Okay. It's unacceptable. It's lowering, as Rich Scheben says, in my world, it's lowering the bars and standards, and I will not tolerate it. So I got an email from this guy. I already sent him 2 other emails, and the emails, and this is from a talk show host. And it had the F word right up early in this email several days ago. And I said, take me off your list. The guy can't read. Take me off your list. So he sent it to a whole bunch of people. So I replied to all of them. Take me off your list. Did it twice. So now I say in the subject line, I put his first name. Do you know how to read? Stop sending me emails. I don't know how to deal with these people other than to totally block them. And I can do that. I can block their phone numbers and I can block their emails. But I shouldn't have to do it. And they should have enough etiquette, enough common sense to not send that stuff. Rich, you have any comments on that?
Well, Vince, we talked about this privately the other day, and maybe because I was born and raised in New York City, maybe I have a little thicker skin than you do. You definitely have higher standards. And when I talk about higher standards and expectations, it's usually in the context of getting and keeping a job. Basically, in the context of how the power elite have manufactured perception and pity and hold on to the narrative using group identity politics to degrade, disrespect, and insult the work ethic, ability, and the intelligence of so many people who cannot, who are being labeled as victim group status as per the elite. Now, I personally feel that everybody has talents and interests and hobbies for things that they enjoy and could make their own way under that context. However, when I look at some of the things happening in America, just like when you were talking about corn and ethanol, well, certain industries have subsidies, special interests, and certain lobbying powers that eliminate free markets and supply and demand. But I just think, Vince, and I'm not trying to argue with you because
hold that thought. Hold that thought. Rich Scheben's with us, and so here's the email I just sent to this guy. I put his first name on it. Do you know how to read? Stop sending me emails. I do not accept profanity in emails or on the phone. If you were to call me, the next thing that you would hear after profanity is silence. I'm not interested in anything you have to say. That's the email that I have just sent to this other broadcaster. And I copied everybody that he copied on the email that he sent to me, including a network, a radio network owner. But you said I have the right to, and then we went into a commercial break. I have the right to what?
Yeah, this is your home. You have the right to tell people how they should interact with you in your home or via some type of communication, whether it be email or phone. You absolutely have that right. I'm just saying that there's so many big fish to fry right now. Well, let me just give you an example. Just a couple articles, so please bear with me. The Mexican government seized from China enough fentanyl to kill over 7 billion people, or 92% of the world, in one shipment. Now, there's so much despair out there, and so many people. I mean, here in Montana, I dreamed, when I grew up in New York City, I dreamed about coming to the Northern Rockies, living off the land, doing the mountain man thing, eating organic food without hormones, steroids, antibiotics, GMOs, and all. You know, I dreamed about this lifestyle. And when I see, now granted it's a per capita number, but when I see suicides, when I see meth use, drug use, and Montana being ranked in the highest states, sometimes number one, is very disturbing to me. You know, here's another article right here, study, and pardon my digression here, but I just think there's so many important things, Vince, like study 78% of college students with gender issues meet criteria for mental health problems. Just a couple of years ago, you know, all these issues that are being discussed on social platforms was mental illness. And now the powers that be, just for the sake of the vote and to collapse our country, is ignoring this stuff. Next article. NBC News, heterosexuality is just not working. Well, if the powers that be think that 7.5 billion people on the planet is too much, let's get the people together, have public forums, maybe say, okay, if men got vasectomies, women had their tubes tied, and we reduce population voluntarily, let's give to the people life-changing money for doing so. But the people, we no longer want things like vaccines and dirty vaccines. I mean, clean vaccines are good if they're provable. We want to get rid of 5G. We want to get rid of geoengineering. We want to get rid of all these cancers and superbugs that they're putting out there. We want to get rid of hormone steroids and antibiotics and red dye in our meat. We want to, have the ability to live as long as the wealthy people do. Nanotechnology. I've made it very clear many times, 96% of Monsanto shareholders years ago voted to not disclose GMO ingredients. The people need to have this information. The people need to have the patents from the Rothschilds and the Monsantos on all this geoengineering. We need to know what's going on for our own health. So if we had the information and there was transparency, I think the people could get together. If President Trump, he said he wanted to give America back to the people. Well, President Trump, please, I've been talking about public forums and citizen review boards in every aspect of government and big corporate oligarchies. Because it's going to get to the point that the central bank system is going to own everything, and the big corporate oligarchies are going to own everything, and the people aren't going to have any choices. Here's another article. Red flag laws, Connecticut man's firearm seized because his son shared a meme on Facebook. I mean, we're getting to the point where we're not just getting stupid, but it's affecting the rule of law, which is our Bill of Rights and Constitution. Free speech and the Second Amendment to protect ourselves and our family is a right. Okay, and I see the left, who are bought and paid for, who fund the left, are the wealthiest globalists in the world, and everybody knows that now. Creating stupid in order to seize the rights of the people. So, Vince, I'm not trying to make light of, you being offended from 4 words. And I get that because I know you. I know you have extremely high standards, more than anybody I know. But when I see 80% of the U.S. people living paycheck to paycheck, and yet there's no recession because a few people at the very top can fudge the numbers, the calculations and the unit of measures, which we've talked about for hours on this show, when I see consumer debt is $1.5 trillion higher than it was in 2008, the last crash, never mind the corporate debt, which is 2 to 3 times higher than the household debt that supposedly crashed the economy, which we didn't fix when we printed money because we put all that money through QE and other forms in the pockets of the super wealthy. When I see the Fed wanting more inflation so they can pop the bond market, when I see everything is fake and where QE is given to the people and 98% of that money goes to the top 1 to 2%, when I see economy based on imperial con artist nightmare rhetoric, when I see rising debt much greater than rising wages, stagnation is a word I would use at the very best. When I see savings for the little guy being eliminated, when I see basically bail-ins and bail-outs for the big guy in the form of corporate welfare, like money printing, QE, for example, fractional reserve lending, stock buybacks. Just think about fractional reserve lending, 10-to-1 ratio by lending for banks. So just think if you as a person who, as a listener right now, you have no money, or let's say you have $10, but you lend out $100. How do you lend out $100? And 10-to-1 ratio is probably very gracious today. It's probably way more than that. But how do you lend out more money than you have? That's what's happening. So the banks, they resell property over time while taking that person's money and collateral, the little guy, and they flip properties and they pay off inspectors, which I've heard big time has happened. And then the banks get bailed out by the taxpayers, mostly the middle class. Everything is geared to bail out the too big to fail and too big to jail and take money away from the little people. One small example off the top of my head is the rigging of the gold and silver markets. It's been rigged for years. There's been banks caught. And what they do is they throw a middle manager to the wolves once in a while, and then they say, I'm sorry, they take a slap on the wrist, and they go back to doing it. Well, why is the silver ratio 88-to-1? It should be 16-to-1 to gold. The reason for that is because it's the poor man's gold. Everything that's related to the little guy is taking money from the little guy to give to the big guy for malinvestment. And it's so important to see, and I know I've gone off into a tangent, folks, but I just have to make a point here on how the big money is bailing out of America, out of corporations. They're bailing out, and they're not telling you about it. And one great example, and I know I've mentioned this in some detail over the last couple of years, is stock buybacks. Now, what happens is the CEOs are only allowed to make a certain amount of money, so they're making even more money because of the stock buyback situation. So when they get extra money, whether it be through tax write-offs or they go out and they sell more debt to the unsuspecting pension funds, instead of putting that money into expansion of business, into new products, into new services, into new people and employees, they take that and they do share buybacks. So the CEOs cash in on stock options. The dividends go to the wealthiest 10% of the country, and the executive cash is funneled more through new debt and acquisitions and mergers on top of that. So everything is fake and phony and designed to funnel money from the little people to the wealthiest in America and around the world. And this is why they want a socialist system. They want tyranny. They want authoritarianism. They call the right Nazis, but the right, the little people, all they're trying to do is hold on to what they have. All they want to do is live their life. All they want to do is control their own destiny. But, and I've mentioned this also, but this is why the left, which is bought and paid for by the elite globalists, they don't want citizen journalists. That's why they want to control the media. So the left is the Nazi. They want to control the police, just like in Portland, where they let Antifa create violence and do everything in the world. But who does that? The left. Dictatorships, totalitarianism, fascism. Who wants no process, no due process? It's the left. That's the Nazis. That's what they do. How come they want to control government schools and they're anti-home schools and they're even anti-parent controlling the curriculum? That's the left. That's what Nazis did, not the right. Private property invasions by the police. Who does that? That's the Nazis, not the right. Who sells out the lawyers and judges who have sold out our court system and rule of law? Who did that during the Hitler and Stalin era? It was the Nazis. It was the left. It was people who were pro-tyranny, pro-dictatorships. They call it socialism and communism. Voter fraud. That's controlled basically by the big corporations, in other words, the big tech companies. This is all Nazi stuff. So this is why we need citizens to be whistleblowers. We need citizens to expect the government to work for us, not the other way around. And I don't know anybody, and I've been on a lot of radio shows over the years, don't know anybody who's anti-government or anti-too big, too corrupt, too overspending, too incorporated, elite control, manipulated, anti-constitutional government, but I don't know one person who's anti-government. Vince?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments when we come back. I don't have enough time right now, but I've got an exclamation point to put on what you just said. Rich Stevens with us, offgridmontana.com. Rich Stevens with us, Off Grid Montana. Rich, you were talking about CEOs increasing their compensation by manipulation and stock buybacks. What they do is they use, instead of expanding the plant, instead of putting money into research and development, they take money that would be used for the benefit of the business, and they buy their own stock back, the corporation stock, which raises the price generally of each share of stock. So the CEOs are given usually stock incentives. We'll pay you more. The higher the share price goes, the more we pay you. And then so what they do is they raise the price of the shares, so even their shares are worth more, and they enrich themselves because of their individual greed. And one of the biggest problems we have in the United States of America is as a result of the sum of all individual greed. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The average tenure of a public school superintendent in a county school system is about 3 years. So it's incumbent upon that superintendent to try to keep that job for as long as he can. But it's hard to do because the average is 3 years. Then they get thrown out because another guy would be better than that last guy. And the problem is each guy makes more mistakes and more mistakes, and they bring in the new guy to fix the mistakes of the past 6 guys or 10 guys. And it's a huge problem, and the problems aren't fixable, so they only last about 3 years. So what does the superintendent do to keep his job? Because if he moves to a new school district, he's going to buy a new house, and that's a hassle, and resettling his family is a hassle. So in order to keep his job longer, what does he do? Well, he builds a new school. So he convinces the school board to undertake a new school construction. They get the public behind it because, well, a new school would be great, but the public doesn't understand that it's costing a fortune to build a new school, but everybody wants new. So they decide to build a new school. Well, how long does that take? A couple years. So by the time they get the school construction process underway and approved and all that, that takes a couple of years. And it takes a couple of years to build the school. Then it takes a couple of years to smooth out the school so that superintendent can take that 3-year job tenure and turn it into 7 years before everybody figures out what happened, how they've been fleeced, and how the taxes are now going to go up astronomically because they built a school they didn't need for the children so they can be better educated. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. So that's just one little example of the sum of all individual greed. And if you put all the superintendents together, building all these new schools, it's an enormous amount of money. And is it necessary? Generally, it's not necessary. And I saw it. I saw it in, I was part of the construction of 2 schools. Yeah, I literally was. I was the design consultant for the computer networking system of the schools. Now, some people would have put wireless in and said, hey, that's all we have to do is put some wireless in. You don't need to run any wires. But then you have all these electromagnetic transmissions. So I would not do that. Okay. I built networks that used wires to keep the health of the students and of the employees and the teachers and the faculty and staff and everybody as best as I could by not using wireless communications. But just about every public school, if not every public school now, has wireless because it's easy. It's easy. So that's my little story, exclamation point, on individual greed and exactly what you're talking about. How the people at the top, now, would you say a superintendent is at the top? Yeah, a superintendent of a county school system is at the top. There's nobody higher than that guy. Except the state
Vince,
superintendent.
let me tell you something. Let me jump in before the break in a couple seconds here. You know, as far as educators go, whether it be superintendents or teachers, it doesn't matter. We need 15 years of private sector experience to teach to be in the school system. We don't have that. We're teaching theory in lieu of practical experience. And going back to the CEO comment on what's happening, when you produce less money, when you put less money into products and services, into R&D, into expansion, into new employees, what you're doing is you're also producing less new products, which means more money chasing less goods, which means it just shows the underhanded system that they're manufacturing inflation, not through supply and demand and free markets, but through an artificial means. And see, this is what inflation absolutely destroys the little people. And you know, if they would admit to this deflationary, stagflationary environment that we're in, that I've been calling for a couple of years, I think we would have a chance to possibly do something about it. But they're trying to artificially change the game through rigging the numbers, and the little people is getting destroyed. The bottom 93%, especially the bottom 80%, I don't see them making up any ground. I just don't see it. Vince?
Inflation is an insidious and hidden tax on the bottom 93%. The amount that you pay keeps going higher and higher and higher because the units of measure, the dollar, is becoming worth less and less. So it takes more dollars to buy the same goods. That's inflation. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Sheben's with us. There goes the neighborhood. Barack and Michelle Obama are going to buy a $14.85 million Martha's Vineyard estate. And they love the property. It's 29 acres. It includes a 7,000 square foot house, 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms. 9 bathrooms. 9 bathrooms. 9 bathrooms. It's got a chef's kitchen, an outdoor fireplace. What do you need an outdoor fireplace for? I don't know. I thought fireplaces were to, provide warmth. What do I know? It's got 2 guest wings. It's got a large sun deck. And it's absolutely magnificent. There's no question about it. And why did I say there goes the neighborhood? Well, imagine you live there. before the Satoros decided to move into the neighborhood? Well, they probably didn't have these new features that once the Satoros move in, they're going to have, like helicopters flying overhead, roadblocks, because want to make sure everybody's safe. So the existing residents of this area are going to be treated to helicopters flying overhead, roadblocks, stops and searches when they travel, Secret Service being all over, store closings. Let's say Michelle wants to buy a new tent for her barbecue, and she wants to wear this new tent. She's got to go to a bunch of stores to find the right tent. Well, those stores are not going to allow just anybody else in there, when she's in, just to make sure y'all are safe. So Bill Clinton used to do that. He'd go shopping for Christmas every once in a while, and they'd shut down the mall because he just wanted to see, buy a present. But everybody else gets removed, for their safety, right? So Barry wants strawberries, and the supermarket gets shut down. They get drones. So that's what I meant by there goes the neighborhood. So the peace and tranquility that people used to enjoy will change as long as the former CEO lives there. It is an absolutely magnificent property, no question about it. It makes the White House pale in comparison. Where did he get all that money? How is he able to afford a just under $15 million estate? I guess senators make that much money. If he used all of the money that he got from his previous positions to just pay the mortgage, he wouldn't pay the mortgage note. How'd they do that? I think that's a secret we need to know, Rich Scheben. What do you think?
Well, who knows? Maybe some of those billions of dollars in cash that went to Iran didn't make it. All of it didn't make it there. Who knows? I mean, there's $21 trillion missing that the professor from the University of Michigan found out. Dr. Mark Skidmore, I believe is his name. So who knows? Who knows? I mean, this is why we need practice what you preach laws. Here, Maryland police shoot and kill a 61-year-old man while trying to serve a red flag order. So we, the little people, get red flag orders and laws, but there's no practice what you preach laws for the elite. Now look at the carbon footprint with all the flying around. Look at, Barbara Streisand flying her dogs 10,000 miles. These are the same ilk who are preaching climate change, and yet their carbon footprint is 10 million times what the average Joe is. So this is why we need practice of what you preach laws. Same with the illegal criminal crimes. Man, I got so much justice. 64% of federal arrests are non-citizens, with a 200% increase. Why don't these celebrities and elite people have their weapons confiscated as well? And not only that, when they are proponents of illegal immigrants coming into our country using sanctuary, I got a study here or article here somewhere also where where is it? Anyway, it was talking about how these people are raping women left and right under sanctuary counties, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. So is that the message? You go to a sanctuary city or county and you can rape all the women you want because this person went free? See, we need practice what you preach laws, okay? And if an illegal alien does a crime, then the celebrities and the elite should have their wealth confiscated to give to the victims of these crimes. And if climate change is such a big deal, Vince, I heard Al Gore saying that the East Coast would be underwater years ago. How come they're buying something right in the ocean if their living room is going to be flooded shortly, or should have been years ago? See, hypocrisy and double standards aren't checked in this country. And if President Trump would create practice what you preach laws to protect the little people, I think it would go a long way. We've been talking about this for years till we're blue in the face. And this is why I started the show with the fact that the little guy has no representation under the law. We have no protection at all. We have no restitution. We have the rule of law. We have a different set of rules, laws, and accountability based on what group you're in. One for the aristocracy, one for the serfs, one for the Democrats, one for the Republicans. And then there's a different set of rules, laws, and accountability based on gender, skin pigmentation, shade, sexual orientation, religion, etc., not for the purpose of all these politically correct buzzwords like equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity, prosperity. This is all BS words that have been hijacked by definition to use as a tool to divide the American people. So as long as we put up with a different set of rules, laws, and accountability based on what protectionist group status, what wealth status, then we are a country without a rule of law. And that's just the bottom line. And how can the little people fight against that? How can we control our own destiny? And I know I'm going into tangents here because time goes quickly on this show. And this is why we talk about off-grid living. This is why we talk about raising your own meat and maybe hunting and fishing, maybe having your own garden, maybe having a wood lot, enough firewood, a.k.a. trees, on your property where you can harvest some free heat with a little elbow grease. This is why we talk about outside-the-box ideas and solutions, because the little people are not represented. We are not represented at all. I look at some of these articles. Why are doctors misdiagnosing patients? Google is burying alternative health sites to protect people from dangerous medical advice. That's BS. It's because they're protecting the big old corporate oligarchy lobbyists like big pharma. Okay, Huffington Post falsely blamed a black student for killing Kennedy's son, all to smear Brett Kavanaugh. Everything is fake. Everything is phony. Everything is made to protect the elite. An Atlanta attorney accused of killing a man after a golf ball hit his Mercedes. Well, you know where all they care about is their stuff. The wealthy only care about themselves, not the little people. The judges and the attorneys do not care about the little people. I tried to hire 30 attorneys. I was told I did not have enough group self-pity points as a poor/middle-class white male heterosexual with a Christian name. I'm not kidding you. It's in the book. I'm not telling you to buy my book. I'm just telling you this is true stuff here. I don't make up these articles. The government gave her son a sex change without parental consent. You can't make this stuff up. Beto O'Rourke says Latinos feel like they have target on their back thanks to Trump. No, it's thanks to the Democrats, because the Democrats have taken advantage of affirmative action and quotas not for the purpose of fairness and equality and prosperity, but to divide us, to lower the bars of standards and expectations. Democrat Ilhan Omar from Minnesota says Latinos can't compete in a merit-based system. Tell me how any Latino, after that remark, after that derogatory, degrading, disrespectful, insulting remark, is going to vote for a Democrat. Please. Why would you? Ocasio-Cortez says the Electoral College is affirmative action for rural Americans. No, the Electoral College is the rule of law. Or else we'll have 2 or 3 cities and 2 or 3 states basically telling everybody in all 50 states and territories how to live. This is Electoral College, affirmative action. What a joke. Affirmative action is, I can't say this enough. We're allowing robotics, automation, artificial take our jobs, while the elite aristocracy is telling us to lower the bars of standards and expectations for the good of the people. We need to not allow the aristocracy and the mainstream media to sway public opinions and hold the narrative. It's up to us to do the reading and think for ourselves. If we don't, truth is gone. Free speech is gone. The ability to protect you and your family is gone. Hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications don't even matter anymore in America. It's all about what group you come from or your nepotism connections. Look, we are in the last days here, folks. I'm telling you right now. I'm not being cynical. I'm not trying to be negative. But from now to the election, from now to November, is going to make or break America. We're either going to have a socialist that eliminates our Bill of Rights, constitutions, freedom, liberties, where you can have some wealthy elite literally take your 9-year-old child to use his pedophilia right out your door. And you're not going to have the ability to use free speech because you may offend somebody. So the silent majority over the next year plus has to stand up, has to use truth, has to use objective facts in lieu of subjective emotional opinion. And we have to use the rule of law, which is the Bill of Rights and Constitution. I've made it very clear over the years how the authoritarians, the people pro-tyranny, under the guise of socialism, the totalitarianism, the fascists, want to control everything. I've given hundreds of examples. And, you know, you can bring a horse to water, and you know the rest of the story. It's up to us, folks. If we don't react and we don't end the silent majority, then America's gone. And all the freedoms that over 1 million combat soldiers died for has been wasted. Vince?
Yeah, we'll be right back. I've got a couple comments. I think I'm going to reset the router so I have less than a 2-second delay. Rich Sheben's with us, off-grid Montana. Rich Sheben's with us. I've got a couple comments about what you said. Rich, when I was studying finance and economics, formerly for 2 degrees, we didn't talk about selling debt. So what a bank would do is have customers that racked up some debt, and then the next thing you know, the bank would say, well, let's sell that to another bank. And they would sell their debt to other banks who would cut it up and sell it to other banks who would sell it to investors. And another thing we didn't study, and I'm mentioning this because you said Al Gore. I met Al Gore in 1980. I was at a convention. We were showing off our technology. Bert Bertonis and I were in Washington, D.C., showing off our latest invention, satellite communications technology. And Al Gore came to our booth, and he was really interested in what we were doing. So I got a chance to see him, Bert and I, and Andy Gibbs. He's another one of our instructors. We were all there talking to Al Gore. And so Al Gore likes the idea of selling things that are really concepts. So Al Gore wants to sell pollution offsets. I mean, who ever thought of that? Did you learn about pollution offsets or carbon credits when you went to school? I certainly didn't. So that's Al Gore. Next thing I wanted to mention is you talked about wood, heating with wood. We heat our house with wood, and I just want to give our class an idea of how much wood. So if you're pretty healthy and you find a tree that has fallen down, you decide to cut it up and split it and put it in the bed of your pickup truck, you'll spend all of Saturday cutting, splitting, loading, stacking, and then unloading your pickup truck with just one pickup truck load of wood. And how big is that? Well, maybe 5 feet wide by either 6.5 or 8 feet long and a couple feet high. It's going to take all day. And about how much wood would you use to heat your house? Well, we would use about 15 pickup truck loads of wood to heat our farmhouse and hot water for a year. Now, most of that gets consumed in the winter, and a very small amount of it gets used in the summer. Maybe one pickup truck load for the summer. The rest is for heat. So one pickup truck load for heating hot water in the summer. The rest would be for heat and hot water. And the last thing I wanted to mention is we're talking about education. Universities have now figured out what the answer is. They need to dumb down some of their science classes. because the students entering freshman year can't handle courses like Physics 101. That's the lightest duty physics course there is. Chemistry 101 is the lightest chemistry course. Okay? The 100 series, especially 101, means entry level, beginners. And we're now finding out that the public training camps, known as public high schools, have not prepared students for the level of learning, the rigor. They don't have the basic requirements understood in order to take the next level class like Physics 101. Rich Scheben, have you been finding that same kind of information in your research?
Well, absolutely, and that goes worldwide, too. One example I use is the fact that China is putting out engineers left and right, and we're putting out lawyers who are bought and paid for, who you can't even hire, who aren't for the rule of law, who are basically have been bought and paid for and socially indoctrinated into creating an agenda to not just divide the American people, but to lower the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job and keeping a job as well. So, yeah, I don't see we have an Orwellian reinterpretation of words that's only meant to benefit the elite and not doing anything for the little people. And I see plausible deniability at every level for the so-called powers that be. And the little guy is running out of options. I mean, we can't get hired. Hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications no longer matter. I can't tell you how many of my emails and phone calls have been blocked for years, and it's only getting worse. So this is why we have to be self-sufficient. We have to think outside the box. We have to hunt for our own meat, grow our own produce. That's the only way to make it today. Vince?
I've got a comment on what you just said about contacting other people. We'll be right back. Rich Scheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. Rich, you made a comment about communications, and I am getting emails from people who don't normally contact me with the device that they're now using. What has happened is emails don't seem to get to me or get received when I send them. So now, to make this work, what people are now doing is they have friends and associates use their cell phones, which have not been used to contact me previously, as a method of saying, hey, so-and-so has been trying to contact you, so I'm contacting you via my cell phone so that you can get this message and try to contact the person who's trying to contact you. It's a workaround. Because, for example, Rich and I may send each other emails, but maybe some of those don't get through. So it would be kind of like Rich saying to a friend, hey, can you contact Vin Finelli? Here's the contact information. Let him know I'm trying to contact him. And then other people will call me and say, how come you don't answer your phone? I'll go, well, I do when I'm near my phone. Well, I just called you. Why didn't you answer it? And I'll say, because the phone didn't ring. That's the kind of stuff that's going on here at our farmhouse. Now, is that because the cell service is down? I don't know, but I don't have a cell phone. So if the cell phone service is down, that does not impact me because I have a cell phone. When someone calls me, they call me on a landline, which has a reliability of 99.997% up. Landlines are about the most reliable thing we have in this country, more reliable than even the power grid. So calls aren't going through. I just wanted to share that. Next thing I'd like to share with you is something that's very disconcerting. So Gloucester County, New Jersey, the police department felt they needed to spend $400,000 of taxpayers' money. $400,000. Because they wanted a system upgrade so dispatchers can now receive live video from callers through a new program called 911i, 911 EYE. So now, if you're in Gloucester County, you can use your cell phone to communicate with the dispatcher at 911 so you can send them live video. Can you imagine that? I wonder what happens to that video. I wonder if these people are going to be walking around filming whatever they feel like it and sending it to the police. How do you like that? How do you like that? I hope that they use some of this to send video of the police helping people. You know, like beating them down, shooting dogs, things like that. So there's a record of it. I wonder how long they store those records. And I wonder, so the upgrade was $400,000. That's almost $500,000. Now, are there maintenance costs with that? Of course there are. They didn't talk about that. How much more is this going to cost? You know, when I'm going to open the kimono right now. So I was the guy that was the consultant for the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's where Fort Bragg is. And I spent a couple years designing that system, and it was, you know, let's automate parks and recreation, the airport, the police department, City Hall, the mayor's office, you know, the entire city. And they decided that the way to pay for all this was with a tax. About 100,000 people in the city. Let's tax everybody who has a phone 75 cents. So they got $75,000 a month. Everybody got to pay a little bit. Anybody who had a phone. That's how they did it. They had so much money, they didn't know how to spend it. Do you think that a government operation would say, whoa, 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 you know what? We don't need $75,000 a month. How about 3 cents a month? Do you think they would do that? Do you think they'd roll back the tax on phone lines? Do you think they would do that? I didn't see it happen. Do you think it ever happens? I looked at the phone bill. There's a whole bunch of taxes. A whole bunch of them. I got to call Century Shaft, also known as Century Link, right after the broadcast, because my guaranteed for life of never to exceed $63.07 phone bill has now hit close to $80. Just a few months after the guarantee, $79.65 is the phone bill. It was never to exceed, never, not once, ever, as long as we have this phone line, never to exceed $63.07. A couple months after they swore to me and recorded my voice and said, yep, we all agree to do this, phone bill is now $79.65. They lie. Century Shaft is the worst telecommunications provider in the galaxy, also known as Century Link. I hope they try to sue me on this. I'd love to expose them even further. That's my call after the broadcast. I hate calling these guys. I have to call them like a couple times a month because they keep dropping the ball and lying to me. They say, you know what, Mr. Finelli, you've had so many problems. We're going to give you a full month's service. Full month. It's never shown up. So I've had to call them twice to remind them that that's what they agreed to do, and they can find it in the records. Yeah, it's there. They go, yep, you're right. All right, we'll give it to you this month. And it doesn't show up. They are horrible. They are horrible. And if I could figure out a way of paying them with a credit card without them having access to my credit card forever, I would pay them with a credit card and I would dispute the charge every month. That's what I would do. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But if I do, I'll let you know. By the way, Friday, special broadcast, and I'm going to tell you all about the Laclede Electric Cooperative's annual selection of the board of directors. I'll tell you exactly what happened and how well I did. You'll be impressed. Scheben, back to you.
Well, you're mentioning things like the bought and paid for class. You're mentioning gaslighting. You mentioned video. There's some breaking news right now. Video from camera outside Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell is unusable. I'm going to just scroll down to the first comment. Quote, I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you. This is the most predictable event in this conspiracy. So it's, we really are living in a Twilight Zone episode, and nothing is real. There's no justice for the people. The little people gets nothing. Now, some people might think they're getting something because of their gender or skin pigmentation shade or sexual orientation, but you're not. What you're doing is helping. You're being played, you're being conned, you're being used, you're being duped to basically foment hate and allow the professional pot stirrers, a.k.a. the elite, to divide, to conquer America. And some of the side effects are things like we always talk about, lowering the bars of standards and expectations for getting and keeping a job. And all that does is turn America into a mediocre country where opportunity is not going to be available for the great majority of people. And when you reward mediocrity, you literally turn our country into a law of diminishing returns. So the ingenuity, the productivity, the innovations are being shipped out. Just like our inflation. You know, when we started shipping all of our manufacturing jobs to the Chinas of the world, we've shipped out inflation and we've imported deflation. So, Vince, I don't know if you have your computer in front of you, but I know we have just a few minutes left. I just want to, for those people who are interested in Economic 101, I recommend you go into marketwatch.com, and you can see what's happening with the inversion of the yield curves. It's unbelievable. The 10-year right now is 1.448. 1.484, pardon me. Everything is in the ones right now, even the 30-year Treasury bond. And the 1-month Treasury bill is over 2%. Everything, 3-month, 6-month, 1 year, 2 year, everything is in the ones. Things are not looking real good. Now, if they could take this and allow people to redo all of their, refinance all of their loans, especially credit card, I'd love to see, the banks should not be charged at 17%. I would love to see the people take the long end of this yield curve and literally refinance everything, take longer to pay it off, and I think that would be a big boost for our economy. But it's very obvious that the powers that be are doing everything to blame everything on Trump and do everything possible to collapse our economy. You got to remember, folks, Donald Trump inherited sabotage, okay? He inherited the biggest disaster in history, along with the demographics, the debt, the credit, the pension promises, the valuations, along with Keynesian economics, corrupt monetary policies from the central banks, group identity politics, absolutely unsustainable headwinds is what he inherited. And we probably still won't go into recession until after the election. But just remember, he inherited crap, okay? He inherited crap on a stick and crap on a bun. And the fact that we haven't gone into a recession yet is truly amazing. And I just hope that the powers that be listen to the little people and some of the ideas and solutions that we give, that other alternative news gives, because the mainstream media is 100% bought and paid for. They're 100% lies, propaganda, false flags, and hoaxes. 100%. And I just urge everybody to do their own reading and research. And the people who get the most demonized, discredited, and delegitimized are probably the people, believe it or not, you should be listening to the most. Because the people who are put on a podium with a microphone in their hand, especially big names, are usually bought and paid for. And, man, I'm looking at this yield curve right now, and I realize we have just a couple minutes left. So we've talked about this in great detail over the past couple of years, and most people saw this coming, but wow, things are not pretty out there, folks. I really recommend people buying a piece of land, and start becoming self-sufficient in some ways. We can't do it in every way. Take your interests, take your hobbies, take your skill sets, take your passions, and go rural and start thinking outside the box and try to help as many people along the way as you can with information. And you can really make a big difference, because I think we're getting close to very, very compromised times. Vince?
Okay, I've got a couple quick comments when we come back. You know, Lincoln, if you buy a new Lincoln, you can have your smartphone as your key. Think about that. Your phone can be the key to your car. Lock it, unlock it, start it. We'll be right back. Okay, so Lincoln, if you buy a Lincoln, it's really neat because you can start your car with your smartphone. I've got a new app. It's will be out toward the end of this year. So your new Lincoln will work with your smartphone. You don't need a key fob. You can use your phone. And, you know, you can pay bills with your phone. You can lock and unlock your house with your phone. You can lock and unlock your car with your phone. You can set your thermostat with your phone. You can set up your refrigerator with your phone. And everything's cool because all you have to do is carry your phone with you, and people do that. And then Verizon decides that, some clerk makes a mistake and shuts down your phone. And then you're, trying to get in your house, trying to get in your car, trying to get home, trying to buy groceries, all because you've entrusted people you don't know, people you can't find, with your keys to your everything. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And just to put an exclamation point on the exclamation point, Lincoln tops the list of the most expensive cars to fix. The average repair cost for a Lincoln, this is the average repair, whatever that is $2,649. So you bring your Lincoln in for repair, expect a $2,649 bill. It's the most expensive. So if you think that you shouldn't ask the salesperson for the truth and what it really means when you buy one of these new vehicles with all this technology, if you think that you shouldn't do that, I think you're mistaken. My key for my truck is about, at the most $2, at the most. You want to buy a key for one of these electronic keys, you're looking at $500, $600, $700. People are selling their cars because their ignition key breaks. Not the ignition switch, not the ignition lock cylinder, the key that you hold in your hand, that breaks. And if the battery quits in your key, you're not getting in your vehicle unless you have a mechanical key. So I just wanted to share that, Rich.
Yeah, well, in today's big tech aristocracy, which has sold out to little people, you look at the deplatforming, you look at shadow banning, you look at the elimination of commerce, the algorithms, the censoring, the surveillance. Basically, anything free is in jeopardy of being centralized and controlled by the people who have this addiction to power, money, and control. Hacking, cookies, computer viruses. What do you think Facebook, Google, and Amazon's out there for? They have billions of dollars of contracts with the CEA for cloud services. So if you're going to use big tech for your life, you better realize that you will be hacked. They are going to decide if you can do commerce. In other words, they're going to decide if you can survive. And that's the bottom line. And
they might decide, since they know how many tomatoes you've bought and how many bananas and how many cans of soup you've bought, they may decide that you're past your limit and you can't buy them.
Mm-hmm.
That's next.
Luckily, I don't buy them. I grow most of them. I'm living off of tomato sandwiches right now. But yeah, I hear your point. And we have urged the people to read about all this. It's in the playbook, folks. It's in the template. Mark Zelinsky, the Frankfurt School, Cloward and Piven, Communist Manifesto, and how they get the people drunk on the Kool-Aid of political correctness.
How about the social scores? The technology companies, big tech in the United States, is embarking on social scores, the same kind of thing that's happening in China. So, class, if somebody you know happens to go to one of these sex sites, they're on the list. Okay, and that will be used in their social score. If they don't make a payment on something, that will go into their social score. If they speed in their vehicle, or if they smoke, or if they buy tobacco, all this goes into the social score. And if they take their finger and take a picture of their finger and put that on their Facebook page, that salute goes into the social score. Things you say, things you comment on, that goes into your social score. So the next thing you're going to find out is that your homeowner's insurance, if you have one, is going to go up or down based on your social score. If you go to the alcohol store and you buy a bottle of wine or a bottle of rum or a bottle of vodka, that goes into your social score. I'm not suggesting you do or don't do anything. I'm just telling you that goes into your social score.
Absolutely. And it's going to lead to confiscation and redistribution of wealth and set the stage for more government interventions and loss of individual rights.
Yeah, I did a quick search. I wanted to see what the price of a scope for a .22 rifle is, an old rifle, a vintage scope. I am plagued now with eBay sending me all kinds of information about .22 scopes. I don't want one. I just want to know what they cost. Same thing with microscopes. I bought a microscope. I'm plagued with, hey, here are some more microscopes. Rich Scheben, thanks so much for being with us. I appreciate you spending your time
Always
volunteering.
A pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich Scheben.